let's take a look at adding nodes to our Overcloud. So there's a few steps we need to take. We need to import the nodes, we need to introspect them, we need to tag them into profiles, then we need to deploy the operating system, and then we need to deploy the Overcloud. So when we import a node, we use a JSON file or a YAML file. Basically, we put the details of the node that we want to import into the JSON file, and we import them using Ironic. So for me, I'm going to be importing a VM from oVirt, which is compute 1. Compute 0 is already part of the Overcloud. So with the network interfaces, the network interface I want to add is this provisioning network. So this is the MAC address over here that I'll need to put into my nodes.json file. So we go to our terminal and we open up our nodes.json file. We can see in here that I already have compute 0. So that's coming from oVirt. So the details we need are we need the MAC address, we need which network that's going to be on. In this case, it's going to be the control plane network. The PM type, so it's the staging oVirt driver. The details about the VM don't really matter, so I've just left that as the default from the example I copied. Then we need the username and password to log into oVirt so we can authenticate. The URL that it will authenticate with, the VM name, and then the profile. So we can see for this one, I'm going to tag it to the profile compute. This one was profile control, and if we look at the Dell compute node, it was also profile compute. So once we've done that, then we can import. So we do OpenStack Overcloud node import nodes.json. Now I'm using a different one because my passwords are removed from the nodes demo one, but the same details are in nodes.json. So it's successfully registered our new node. So we go back to the documentation. We can do node manage, but we should now be able to see it in OpenStack bare metal node list. Okay, so we can see in that node list that the VM was in the enroll state. And it's in the enroll state because the Ironic containers don't have the oVirt SDK installed in them. So these are the errors that get reported. So one of the things we need to do when we import these nodes is the Ironic containers aren't built with the oVirt SDK. So because I've done a minor update, all my changes have actually been removed. I made those changes manually last time. So this time I want to make sure that it's actually permanent. I want to make sure that oVirt SDK is installed in my containers on every update. So we can use the method we learned for adding RPMs to containers in a previous video, and we're going to apply that to our Ironic containers. So we can see here, this is my container image prepare argument. I've removed all of the stuff that relied on Docker, like Ceph and things that I wasn't using, so that I don't get Docker rate limited from Docker.io. And we're just relying on Quave for TripleO master containers. And then down here, I'm adding an include section, and I'm including all of the Ironic containers that are relevant to the deployment. Now, I could probably just do Ironic Conductor. It's the only one that really needs it, but just for the sake of demonstrating how to do it to multiple containers, I'm just going to patch all of them because I can. So I've added in my Ironic containers to the include section. I've told it that I'm going to use the TripleO modify image role. I'm going to append the tag oVirt custom to the end of all of my containers. And then I'm going to install the RPMs from this directory. So we exit this file and do an ls on that directory. We can see I've downloaded the Python 3 oVirt engine SDK4, and I've just downloaded that from the oVirt repo that I'll link below. And then Python 3 PyCurl. So to get that one, I've just done DNF download Python 3 PyCurl, and that will download it to the current working directory. So once that's been completed, we need to make sure that our undercloud.conf points to the updated containers prepare parameter file. So we do vim on undercloud.conf, and we can see down here I've pointed container images file at homestack containers prepare parameter with creds. So I've got credentials for Quay.io, so I've concatenated that file I just showed you along with my credentials into one file, and I'm providing it here. And once that's been complete, we can just run the OpenStack undercloud install. Now, I've already done this just to save some time. So if we take a look at my containers, we can see there that my Ironic containers are now running with the TripleO oVirt custom tag. So these all have the oVirt SDK installed in them now. Now there was another problem that I also had to fix here. If we go back to the browser, so this bug, I was also hitting this issue where when I tried to import the nodes, I would get a traceback, and that traceback would say that there was a type error for the URL. The first arg must be bytes or tuple of bytes, not a string. And that was happening when it tried to pass the URL to see whether it started with HTTPS. Now to fix that issue, I've just added a decode section into the init py script. And this, I've obviously raised Bugzilla for this, so we'll patch it and it'll get actually fixed. But if you want to fix it, all we're doing is just adding a decode section to decode the URL as a UTF-8 string instead of bytes. And then I had the same issue with the Ironic side of things while it passed the VM name. So this hack is by no means a complete fix for the problem, but it will be a workaround to get you past it. So I'm just doing the same thing here where I'm doing a decode of UTF-8. But we can see here that name is actually string encoded to be ASCII. So I might just try and change this to UTF-8 instead and remove this line and see if that works. But for now, and for the sake of continuing with the video, we will just keep going. And if we do a openstack bare metal node list, we can see that the new VM has now moved into the manageable state. So what we want to do now is we want to introspect that node. So if we look back at our documentation for the introspection section, we can see that our node is in the manageable state. So we can just do openstack bare metal introspection start and then pass it the UID. And if we go have a look at the oVirt console, yeah, this is our VM. So we can see that it's now booting up. The VM appears up, so we can open a console and take a look at the console. So we can see here on the console of the VM that it's now booting from the Ironic Python agent image, and it's going to report back all of the stats about the VM. And then we will proceed with the deployment. So we'll wait for that to finish and we will come back to it. Okay, so once the introspection is finished, we can go ahead and check out the introspection data to make sure everything was collected correctly. So just openstack bare metal introspection data save and then the name of the node or the UID, and we'll pass it to JQ so it's nice and pretty. So there we go, we've got it all there. It's all good now. So the next step is we need to deploy the operating system, and to do that with TripleO, we do that with a new method called openstack overcloud node provision, and it uses Metalsmith. So the instructions are here, but basically what we're going to do is we're going to create a YAML file with all the information about the node, and then we're just going to run openstack overcloud node provision. So if we have a look at the existing config for this, so these were the two nodes that I first configured. So we want to add a new instance down here. So we'll do hostname, overcloud, nova, compute1. Name will be compute1. So that is the Ironic name for it. So once we've added our node to that file, the next thing we want to do is we want to run the openstack overcloud node provision, but we just want to make sure that that node is in the available state in Ironic. So we do openstack bare metal node list. We see the node's still in manageable state, so let's just do a provide on that one. Openstack bare metal node provide on that node. That should move it into the available state, which we can see it did, so that's great. So then we just want to run the openstack overcloud node provision. Then we're going to give it the stack name, which is overcloud. we're going to output the resulting YAML file into Overcloud bare metal deployed, and we're just going to pass it the file we just edited and added that node to. So we'll run that command now. And this is documented here as well. So this is in the deploying the Overcloud step. Number of instances 2 cannot be greater than 1. Let's edit that file again. I must have missed something here. Yes, so I've got 1 and we want 2. Let's try that again. Okay, so still hitting the issue, and because I've actually scaled down this other node, I don't think it likes me reusing it, so I might have to delete and re-import that one. So let's just remove that. We'll change our count back to 1, and we'll just do it with this one single compute node. Okay, and we can see it's running there. We can see it is now provisioning the node. If we check out oVirt, we should be able to see this boot pretty soon. Okay, we can see the node is now booting up. If we check the console, we can see it's now booting into CentOS. So we'll wait for that to finish. Once that's finished, we will rerun the Overcloud deploy with this node included now, and we will conclude the video. Okay, so that's finished now. So we should now have the node added to this file. So we can see here that we have controller 0 is going to be on this IP address, controller 1 is on this IP address, so this is the one we just provisioned. Now this file here needs to be added to our Overcloud deployment, so let's just compare that to the one we're actually using. We look in templates. We can see in my current one that I'm using that I have the Dell compute node as well. So I need to add that to the new one, or I need to add my new compute node to this file. Whichever way, it's probably easier to add my compute node to this file. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So we'll open up the Overcloud bare metal deployed YAML, and we're just going to copy the details for this one. And put them in this file. Okay, so there's a few things missing, so maybe something has changed. I'm not sure that's going to particularly be a problem, but what I do need to do is change this down here. So that should match what we had in our hostname map from the file that was just generated for us. Hostname map, so we can see that that matches. So at this stage, we're good. We can run another deployment now. So the first thing we want to do is make sure we're in a tmux window. We've made sure we've done all of our backups. I did that separately. I don't want to put you through that every time, but always make sure you make a backup. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to just do go into our templates directory, which we know is a Git repo. So in here we will do git checkout -b, add new compute, git add, just make sure that hasn't changed our Overcloud. Yeah, we're right. So we'll git add that file, git commit -m, add new compute node, Overcloud, oVirt, just so we can differentiate it. And we'll do git commit amend, and we're going to put here closes 7. This is issue 7 on GitLab. I'm not going to run you through that every time, but you should always have all these kind of changes tracked in Git, so it's easy to roll back. Cool, so once we've done that, we can run deploy overcloud.sh and deploy. And now it's going to deploy the Overcloud. It's going to use all my existing nodes, so my Dell compute node, my controller, and it's also going to add this new compute node. Okay, so our deployment's still running there, but while it's running, let's just have a bit of a recap of what we've done here. So the first thing we need to do is we need to import the nodes. So we need to add it to our JSON file. Then we need to do an introspection. Then after we've done the introspection, we need to add it to our YAML file to import into Metalsmith so that Metalsmith can deploy the operating system. So all that's here. So we go through and we create a YAML file similar to the one in this documentation here. Once we've added all the details about the node that we want to provision, then we come down and we run this Overcloud node provision and we pass it in that file. And it's going to output for us a file that we're going to include in our Overcloud deployment. That file for our Overcloud deployment will have the new compute node. So in my case where I've deployed my Dell outside of Metalsmith, I've added that manually in there as a pre-deployed node. So if you're like me, you'll need to do that as well. Then we just run our Overcloud deployment, and that renders through the new playbooks that are going to be used, the new Ansible inventory with the new compute node, and then it goes through and it runs our deployment. So that's basically all there is to it. I hope that's a little bit enlightening to the new process of importing nodes, introspecting, and running the deployment. It's a little bit different to what TripleO has done in the past, or what Red Hat OpenStack platform does different today. And that's mainly because we don't have Nova on the undercloud anymore. So we don't use Nova, we don't use scheduler hints or things like that to provision the nodes. So gone are the days of no valid host error, and I'll leave a few examples to issues like that that have come up in the past. So the next video I make, I'll do one on node deletion. I'll delete the compute node that we added, and we'll see what that process looks like in comparison. And we'll discuss how that's different to, say, how we would have done it in Queens or Red Hat OpenStack Platform 13 and 16. So hopefully that's informative, and I will see you in the next video.